GD Vacarja agus Vorgade Falcha. Welcome to our first installment on the oral exam. Mihal here. So what I want to do is just give you a very quick short video to explain the oral exam from an examiner's perspective, and what it is, when it takes place, what happens if there's a recorder in the room, what happens if there's two examiners in the room. I want to go through all the questions that students have been sending in over kind of basically how it takes place. So let's have a look at the first part and I'll walk you through this. So what is it? And this is one thing you're really going to have to trust me on this. It's actually just a chat that you're going to have between an examiner and another teacher, basically. So these people that are coming to you are actually all teachers themselves and have their own students in their own schools, and they're quite worried about their own students and how will they get on, and are they anxious, are they worried. So you really have the best of both worlds when you get somebody coming in. They're actually a teacher as well. So this is going to be a chat that'll take place between a student and examiner. And here is the thing. It's going to last roughly about 12 to 13 minutes, maybe 14 at a stretch, but definitely no more than that. There is going to be a recorder in the room. So when you walk in, there's going to be this kind of a CD recorder, and that kind of usually panics students, but the whole purpose of the recorder is that it's actually there as a backup. Let's say, for example, at the end of the week, an examiner finishes off 200 students, all graded for their oral exams, puts the notes into a car gets robbed, and then all of a sudden 200 exams are missing for students. So the recorder is there as a plan B, a backup, that if the paperwork goes missing, at least we have a digital copy of all of your oral exams. So that's why the recorder is there. It's nothing else really. So that's going to be there, and that'll link up in case stuff goes missing. On a rare occasion, now this has happened a couple of times, right? On a rare occasion, there might be a supervisory examiner in the room as well. This is actually quite good for you. So if you walk in and you see your examiner, and then you see somebody sitting in a chair in the left hand side of the room, that's grand. That supervisory examiner is actually there to watch me. That supervisory examiner is there to make sure that I'm creating a nice atmosphere, I'm asking fair questions, I'm making the atmosphere quite welcoming, and I'm not being too hard, and I'm being very kind of nice and open with my method and how I talk to the students. So the supervisory examiner is actually really good to have there itself. So it's more so for the examiner that they're being examined, and it's nothing really to do with you. That supervisory examiner is probably not even listening to anything you're saying. They're just watching that examiner and how they're behaving in the exam itself. So it's all about creating a very relaxed and warm environment for the students themselves. So that's it. It's a little bit of a chat, 12 to 13 minutes between you and technically another teacher. Now, where does it take place? So your oral exams are going to take place in your school. Now, usually your school will release the room numbers the week of the orals, and maybe even the week beforehand. Again, just depending on the size of your school and the number of students. There might be more than one examiner depending if you're from a big school. So let's say, for example, if you're a Gorey Community School, which has about maybe 1,600 students and maybe 200 in sixth year, then you might have maybe 3 or 4 examiners who will help get the work done over the week. So there could be more than one, depending on the size of your school. Now, your exam might go by surname, or it might go by exam number, and this is up to the school. Now, don't worry if you haven't gotten exam numbers. Exam numbers don't usually come out till about maybe the end of February anyway. Sometimes they come out for you in January, sometimes February, sometimes the end, but you'll have them well in advance anyway before the exams. Now, whether it goes by surname or exam number, it's completely up to the school themselves. Now, when does it take place? This is quite interesting, right? Traditionally, before COVID, before lockdown, they were always held the week before the Easter holidays and the week after the Easter holidays. And it was really nice because they separated our languages. They put Irish in week 1, everybody did week 1, and then after the Easter exams, then you had a week of French and German and Spanish. So they were lovely, and they were separated over the Easter holidays themselves. However, during COVID, they decided for some reason to put all of the exams in the 1 week over Easter holidays. So this year, I think we're still staying with the same kind of, it'll take place over Easter. Now, it could change in the coming years, or it might change a little bit closer, but it's best to check in with me as much as you possibly can, just to see if I've heard anything. But take it for now that it'll actually all take place over the Easter holidays. And I'm going to give you a little bit of advice as well with this. They will put all of the languages into the 1 week. Now, I don't know why they're doing it. It doesn't make sense. It's not something I would do. So you might have Irish on a Monday and you could have French on a Thursday, or you might have Spanish on a Tuesday, and you could have French on the Friday. But your school will do their very best to keep the languages separated as well. So, what does it actually involve? Well, this is the thing that's really, really interesting. It's about you and your life. That's it. So when I go in, I want to know, where do you live? How many is in your family? What's your favourite subject? What's your least favourite subject? What do you want to do after the Leaving Cert? Do you like sports? Do you like music? What's your favourite TV programme? Have you ever been to the Gaeltacht? Have you ever been to Spain? What's the differences between Ireland and Spain? I just want to know about you and your life. And here's the thing, you know these answers. So for the first time, if you think about it, the tables are turned. You know the answers, you know everything, and I actually know nothing. So this is really, really important. When you're going in, you need to know that, well, I know how many brothers and sisters I have. I know what sports I like. So for the first time, the tables are turned, and there's a big disadvantage between me and you. You're now in the advantage and I'm in the disadvantage, because this is all about you, your life, your family, your school, your sports, your hobbies, your travel plans, and what you want to do after the Leaving Cert. And the questions are fairly predictable. We don't really stray too well from the questions. So it's like, how many's in your family? Who's the oldest? Who's the youngest? Do you all get on? The questions are quite predictable, and they can be easily led by the student. And that's something you're going to see in my videos that are coming up underneath all of the topics for family, for sports, for pastimes. You can actually manipulate the conversation to where you want to go. And this is where you'll get your H1. So let's have a think about this, right? If I say to you, how many's in your family? And you say to me, well, do you know what? There are 3 in my family. Saoirse is the oldest, Sean is the youngest, and I got on really well with Saoirse because we play the same sports. My next question is going to be, what sports do you play? And you can say, well, we play hockey, we play soccer, we play camogie, and we play rugby. And you can tell me about all the different topics that you like in that. So you can actually manipulate the conversation by dropping in what we call tags. And tags are kind of like breadcrumbs, where you're getting the examiner to pick up on what you want to talk about. So I'll show you how to do these in all of the videos that we do. So a clever student, a H1 student, is going to manipulate the conversation to what you want to talk about, and they're going to avoid what they don't want to talk about. So if you don't want to talk about social media and the impact of social media, then don't be telling me that you use your phone and you love Instagram and you love Facebook or you love Snapchat, because my next questions will all be about, tell me about social media and does it impact on your studies? So you only want to give the examiner what you want to talk about. And that's the whole manipulative element to the orals. And I'm going to show you how this is all done in the class. Now, this is really important. This is going to be the biggest point earner for you on this course. And the standard for H1 in Irish is actually not as bad as you think. The standard, it's not as high as you think. So here's the thing. Let's say you just want to get a H4 in Irish. Why not aim for H3 in the orals, because it's very, very doable? Or even, why not try and go for H2 in the orals? So it's going to be a massive point earner, and that's what I want to show you in a couple of seconds. But it is very, 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 very possible to get 100% in the orals, because it's only a little chat. Now, I know I mentioned it's only an 11, 12 minutes up here. The chat itself is actually only about 7 minutes. So I want to keep this in the back of your head. If I'm looking for a H3 or I'm looking for a H4, that's fine. But why not maybe just for this section of the course, why not just think, maybe I can get a H2? Because the whole exam is geared to give you the highest amount of marks. So I want to show you this now in the next page. So the thing is, you don't need long, complex sentences. That's incredibly, incredibly important. So when you're preparing the oral material, if you have long, complicated sentences that go on and on and on, that's over preparing. That's overkill. And you're not really going to remember those sentences. And that's where the stress is going to come from. You're trying to remember a huge sentence when all you want to say is John is the oldest. But yet you're making a massive thing out of this and having long, complicated sentences. So I need you to go back over your oral material. I need you to think, do I really need that long sentence? Or is it just a waste of time? So this is what I'm saying, that your opinion of what maybe a H1 is, it's not as high as that. So you need to cut those sentences down. The other thing I'll need you to do as well is, if you have a question and you have your answer, and your answer is about maybe 9 lines long, 10 lines, 11, 12 lines long or more, you're over preparing. You're not going to get all of that out. No examiner is going to sit back and listen to you rattle off 12 lines of an answer. 5 lines to 6 lines is my maximum cutoff with my students, because I want to have a conversation. I want to get through the topics. I want to talk about an awful lot. I'm not going to just let you sit there and be an absolute Mayfainer and talk about yourself non-stop. So get rid of those long complicated sentences and get rid of those long complicated answers and make things short and snappy, 5 to 6 lines. Now remember, it's 100% to get it's possible to get 100% in the grade. So let's have a quick look at the marking scheme and let's look at the format that's going to happen with the orals. So the orals are broken down into 4 sections. That's nice. And it's 240 marks or 40% of our overall grade. Now, when I tell you that this exam is geared to give you the best possible grade, have a look at this. We have firstly, it's the welcome. And you're going to come in and you're going to answer 5 questions. Now, what is the welcome? The welcome is just me making sure that my file matches the person sitting in front of me. So I want to make sure the name is right, the exam number is right, the address is right, the date of birth is right. So I just want to make sure that this is kind of like paperwork, really. But we're going to give you 5 marks for it. So each time that you answer my questions, and I'll tick it off, say, yeah, that's grand, your name is, yeah, I've got your ID, yeah, well, perfect, you'll get your 5 marks. And after that, what we have is the poetry reading. You're going to read me a poem. So those 5 poems that we have in our course, Spalbín Fánach, Mugrasa, Colscara and Gavin, and Antara here, I'm going to pick one of those poems and you're going to read me a couple of verses from the poem, and it'll take about maybe 2 minutes. But here's the thing, it's worth 35 marks. That's nuts. That is actually worth more than your paper 2. So think about all the time and effort that you're putting into a question on Antara here on paper 2 in Irish. The images, the emotions, the life and work of the poet. All the effort that you're putting in is only going to get you 30 marks. But you're going to read me a poem and you're going to get 35. So this is what I mean. The whole exam is geared, it's engineered to give you the highest grade. So that's what I'm saying to you. If you're thinking, oh, I only want a H4, I only want a H3, my advice is aim higher. You could actually genuinely surprise yourself. But there's more good news with the poetry reading. You get to bring that poem into the exam with you. You get to write down the phonetics, and I'll take you through these in the next videos. I'll tell you, make sure you pronounce this way, and this way, and this way, and this way. And you write them on a sheet of paper, and you bring that sheet of paper into the exam, and I'll say to you, read me Gavin, and you read off the pronunciation on Gavin. So that's a handy 35 out of 35 for everybody. So if you think about it, 35 marks plus the 5 marks for getting your name right, we're also up to 40 marks now. And what these two here are very cleverly done, and this is why I kind of like what they've done here. The welcome and the poetry reading are there for one purpose, well, 2 really, to give you loads of marks for nothing. But it's also there to bring the atmosphere down. I know you're nervous. I know you've studied. I know you're very anxious. You probably haven't slept the night before. You're probably pacing up and down the halls, waiting to go into the oral exam. And we know this. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that when you come in, we bring the atmosphere down. I'm going to give you 5 questions about yourself. Your name, your age, your date of birth, your exam number, and where you live. Just to give you a breather. And then I'm going to ask you to read me a poem. For no other reason that you get to bring in with you. Just to bring the atmosphere down again. So now, you're really kind of calm. You're speaking a little bit of Irish and things are nice. And you realise that I'm not an actual horrible person. And then we'll start on the conversation, which is all about you. But have a look at the marking scheme for the conversation. This is crazy. 120 marks. And look how long it lasts. 6 to 8 minutes. So in 6 to 8 minutes, you're going to earn 120 marks. Fun fact, maybe not fun, but interesting fact. Your essay that you're doing, homelessness, healthcare, crime, the environment, that essay that you get to spend 2 hours on is only worth 100 marks. But in the orals, you can earn 120 within 6 minutes, talking about you, your hobbies, your pastimes, what you like, what you don't like. So straight away, hopefully you're kind of getting the picture now that this is all kind of geared to give you a huge, huge, huge chunk of marks in a very, very, very little amount of time. And this is why I'm saying with the orals, we're going to aim high, because you would be very, very surprised at how well you will actually do talking Irish for 6 minutes. I'm going to give you more good news. Do you know in French, German, Spanish and Italian, they have you learning off kind of random topics. Brexit, the environment, cloning, vaping, underage drinking. In Irish, we probably won't get around to any of that. because I only have 6 minutes to talk about you. By the time we talk about your family, your school, your sports, your pastimes, if you're ever on holidays, what you want to do after the Leaving Cert, that 6 minutes is going to fly by. So in Irish, we don't really have an awful lot of time to talk about those abstract topics that you tend to get in the other languages, which makes it an awful lot easier for us to actually prepare. So here's the thing. If you are preparing stuff on Brexit or politics or underage drinking or vaping or voting, maybe hold off on that to a little bit later and just do the basics, what we are going to talk about for those 6 minutes. And then you can add on a couple of topics, but it's up to you to get those topics in. Like, I'm not going to turn around and say to you, what's your name, what's your age, what's your favorite subject? Tell me about Trump in America. You have to tell me what we're going to talk about. You have to manipulate the conversation. You have to lead me with the topics that we're not going to talk about. So if you don't want to talk about Brexit, I'm not going to ask you about Brexit. Don't bring it up. So just in terms of preparation, I think sometimes we're maybe over preparing in Irish and we're not going to get all of those topics out. Now, if you are in doubt, make sure you drop me a message. But other than that, there's no real need to do all those topical things unless you find a way of bringing up those topics, because we only have 6 to 7 minutes to talk about you in your daily life, and that'll fly by. Now, after that 120 marks, we are on then to our Sra Picture, my favourite part of the orals, because we get to keep the vocab so uniform. Remember, I'm only going to pick one Sra Picture, so I don't know if you have the same vocab and structures and verbs for all of the Sra Pictures. So the closer you can keep them together and the closer you can keep them vocab together, the easier the Sra Picture become. Now, you'll get 80 marks. 80 marks is a huge amount. 80 marks is nearly worth an essay. It's nearly 2 times, or 3 times, 2 times, 2 and a bit, of an actual poetry question or an Usheen question. So think about all the time and effort that you're putting in that, and in 4 minutes for doing a Sra Picture, you will get 80 marks from your examiner. Keep your sentences short, keep them simple, and I'll walk you through these in a little bit as well. So let's take a quick recap. In other languages, in like French, German, Spanish, and Italian, you'll probably have to talk for about 15 minutes straight. In Irish, it's a short chat of 6 to maybe 8 minutes. Being realistic, there's only so many topics that we can actually fill into this. Where other languages have you going through political and social and the civical topics and all that, we don't really have time for that unless you specifically want to bring it up. Like, I'm looking for 600 points. I want to go do political science next year in Trinity College. Then I'll say, okay, they're going to do political science. They told me they're going to do political science. That means she wants me to ask her questions about politics. So only if you nudge or manipulate, that's the only time we're really going to go into these typical areas. So our material in Irish is actually an awful lot easier to prepare. So within the 6 to 8 minutes, you can bag 120 marks, which is more than an essay. Within the 2 minutes of poetry readings, you can bag 35 marks, which is worth 5 more than your poetry for paper number 2. And you can also bring in the phonetic spellings into the exam with you. In the welcome section, we're going to give you 5 marks for telling me your name, your age, your date of birth, your exam number, and your address. This will be one of the quickest exams you will ever sit, and it'll be one of the biggest point earners that you will ever get on a Leaving Cert paper. So it is really, really doable to actually bag the 40%. So if you're thinking my Irish isn't great and I'm not this and that and I'm looking for maybe a H4, my honest and personal opinion, I want you to aim a little bit higher, because you're going to surprise yourself. Now I'm going to make a couple of more videos talking to you a little bit about the actual exam itself and the different parts of it. So pop on over to the next video and I'll talk to you then. A chairde, go to míle mágah, slán inis.